Hello, welcome to Rising Star. My name is Ruth, and today we are learning about the card, the High Priestess. So, the High Priestess is an endless sea of knowledge, truly. The more that you dig into the High Priestess, the more that you can learn about her. So, I encourage you after this video to do your own research. She will take us down to the depths to learn spiritual lessons, but this is a continuous cycle. As we go through many Fool's journeys, we will travel to these depths again and again to reveal more of what is hidden. So we'll start out with the story of Demeter and Persephone. Some say Demeter, I call her Demeter. So this is a story in Greek mythology. Demeter was the goddess of agriculture, harvest. She taught the people how to plant, how to harvest crops and make wheat and all of that, grind wheat into flour and bake bread. And then her daughter was Persephone, and Persephone is known as the goddess of spring as well as the goddess of the underworld. So what happened was there's actually many variations of the story of Demeter and Persephone, so I'm going to give you kind of a summarized version here, but there's an endless amount of variations of this story. So Demeter would go work in the fields, and Persephone would go with her and play, and she would play in the fields and pick flowers and explore and things. And this was around the time that Persephone was coming of age between child and woman. So Hades, who rarely came to the earth, Hades is the god of the underworld. We also know him as Pluto, by the way. Hades came to the earth. He saw Persephone. He fell for Persephone, and he had to have Persephone. A little disturbing when you think of how young she was, but this is a very ancient story. So the only way that Hades thought he could have Persephone was by kidnapping her, because he knew that Demeter and Persephone were very close, and Demeter was never going to part with her and allow her to go to the underworld and become the goddess there. So one day Hades kidnapped Persephone, and there's variations here of what exactly happened and who saw it. Some stories say that the nymph Scion was the witness to it, and Scion then cried so many tears that created the river Scion. Some say it was Helios, the god of the sun, who sees everything. So Persephone disappears, and Demeter goes into a panic, searching the earth for Persephone. She can't find her. She's very depressed and sorrowful. This was a very close-knit mother-daughter relationship. So she quits helping with the agriculture. Everything starts dying, all right? So think of spring and fall. All of the food starts dying. The people can't reap anything that they're sowing. Nothing can be grown. People are starving to death. Animals are starving to death. The earth is in a bad place when Demeter goes through this depression. So Zeus, who also happens to be the father of Persephone, Zeus sends Hermes, the messenger, who we also know as Mercury. So Zeus sends Hermes to the underworld to retrieve Persephone and bring her back. Well, when he gets to the underworld, it's found out that Persephone has eaten some pomegranate seeds. Some stories say she ate one pomegranate seed because she was so starving. Some say 6. The 6th one fits. And so she was so hungry that she ate some pomegranate seeds. And there is a rule in hell that if you eat while you're there, you'll never return to earth. So a deal had to be struck. At this point, Zeus had to come in and mediate here. A deal had to be struck between Hades and Demeter, that Persephone would spend 6 months of the year in hell, or Hades, and the underworld, and then the other 6 months on earth with Demeter. So that is where, that's how the ancients explain the seasons and the dying of things and the rebirth, which is a constant cycle, a constant spiritual cycle that we all live through, as well as a constant physical cycle. There is a constant death and rebirth of things. This is a continuous theme within the tarot, as you will see. There is always death, rebirth, regeneration, transformation, transmutation. So, that is how Persephone became the goddess of the underworld. So the high priestess is Persephone. And what the high priestess teaches us is that this journey to the underworld, it's the other side of things. It's the subconscious side of things, the occult side, the secretive side. Pluto rules Scorpio. So think of Scorpio energy. Death, rebirth, regeneration, and sex, occult matters, mysteries, secretiveness. Pluto is very secretive in its energy. All right, I could go on for days about that. So let's talk about the imagery here. So we have Persephone sitting on her throne as the high priestess. Behind her is this veil with the pomegranates on it. So she ate the pomegranate seeds while she was in hell. Pomegranates are a very ancient fruit. Some believe that pomegranates were the forbidden fruit that was eaten by Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. I think it might even say that in the Quran, but don't quote me on that. I want to say I read that somewhere, but don't quote me on that. What else was I going to tell you about pomegranates? Oh, pomegranates, the Greeks believed that Aphrodite, the goddess of love, planted the first pomegranate seed on the island of Cyprus, which is near Greece. But it also represents eternal love. And something else I was going to say about that. Where's my pomegranate notes? Oh, yeah. So pomegranates represent abundance, fertility, divine feminine energy. The anima, which is a masculine's feminine side, right? We each have the opposite within us. If you know anything about Carl Jung's teachings, feminines have the animus and masculines have the anima, and it's like your opposite. How do I explain this? So like a feminine has a masculine aspect within them called the animus, and a masculine has a feminine aspect within them called the anima. All right, sorry if I confuse you guys with that. So abundance, fertility, growth, but in order to get to this abundance, fertility, growth, one must first journey through the underworld. So that's like the main theme here with the high priestess. Now, the pomegranate veil, that is a thin veil that represents the veil between the material world and the spiritual world. That is a theme that comes up a lot with the high priestess. She is a gatekeeper to hell or to Hades. There's water behind her, which I haven't seen anybody say exactly what this body of water is. I believe it's the river Styx, because the river Styx must be crossed in order to get into Hades. So the pillars here, we have a black pillar and a white pillar. These represent duality, as do the number 2 on the high priestess. So the black pillar represents Boaz, which means in his strength, and the white pillar represents Jashan, which means he will establish. I also saw somewhere that they represent, I want to say strength and mercy, but that doesn't sound right now. But the general idea is the duality of things. So in order to live in the light, we must also journey through the darkness. It's kind of the general theme here. Now on her head, she has this crown, and it's a moon. The high priestess she represents the moon and the sign Cancer. To me, she is also very Piscean. It's a very spiritual energy, and I find her to be very Piscean as well as Cancerian. But her little moon crown here, it teaches us that she has learned to acquire spiritual knowledge through her crown chakra. It also represents the maiden, the mother, and the crone, which is like the feminine trilogy. And then she has this cross on her chest. So that can represent the elements, earth, fire, water, and air. the cardinal directions, but it's also the crossing of the spiritual and material world. So this is where spiritual and physical meet each other, is within this high priestess energy. She is both. She lives in Hades half the year and she lives on Earth half the year, so she is experiencing both sides equally. Then in her hands, she has this scroll. And if you can see it, it says Torah on it. So Torah is the first 5 books of the Bible, and Torah means teachings. So she has these spiritual teachings here, which are partially hidden by her robe. And so this represents the hidden mysteries that the high priestess has to teach us. The fool comes across the high priestess, and then he begins to learn these hidden mysteries. Hidden mysteries are uncovered. And usually when we're uncovering hidden mysteries, they're in our own subconscious. So she represents the subconscious and the consciousness, the veil between the two, the meshing of each other. All right, also with Torah, if you mix up the letters in Torah, you also get tarot out of that. Fun little Rider-Waite or oh man, I can't even remember Waite's first name now, but a fun little thing that he put in there for us. And then we have the moon at her feet. She does represent Cancer and the moon. And what did I write down? So she grounds in a different way, right? Not only in a physical way, but in a spiritual way. So she knows that this knowledge, the spiritual knowledge, needs to be pulled down from the crown chakra all the way down through her feet into the earth. I hope that makes sense to you. She connects to the earth through intuition and emotion, which is actually how we collectively connect to each other, is through our intuitions, but that's something that our society has gotten away from, and we're more individual than collective now. But she teaches us that we all have this intuition that can be tapped into. Like, we really don't need to ask questions outside of ourselves because all of the answers exist within us. The blue on the card represents also intuition, emotion, knowledge, spiritual knowledge here. All right. I don't want to miss anything for you guys. Okay, also, like, when you think of a high priestess, what do you think of? Do you think of like a spiritual leader? Maybe in a coven of witches, you would have a high priestess who governs over the coven. Well, nobody gets into a coven or a secret society, one might say, without an initiation. So the high priestess initiates us into a higher spiritual knowledge, but she takes us on this journey through Hades, that is the initiation, is to go through this deep subconscious journey and discover all of these inner secrets. So as sorry, I'm getting a lot. What was I saying? In a tarot reading, if you pull the high priestess, what are meanings that you would get? So secretiveness, mysteries, intuition, spiritual wisdom, divine feminine energy, even the Holy Spirit. I think the high priestess represents, in Christianity, the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is a feminine energy. I'm not going to go into that whole explanation. All right. I don't want to miss anything. So on the Hermetic high priestess, we have that little letter in the top the top left corner there. That is the Hebrew letter Gimel. So Gimel means benefactor or a charitable person. And actually the picture is supposed to represent a rich person chasing after a poor person in order to help them, which I find very interesting. Gimel also means camel, like in the Yiddish language. Gimel and camel are supposedly the same. So a camel holds a lot of water at once, right? And water is intuition and emotion. I just find that interesting that The high priestess is very in touch with her emotions and her intuition, and then you have Gimel representing a camel. There was something else I was going to tell you about Gimel, but I guess I didn't write it down. So that is disappointing. It is the third letter of the Hebrew alphabet. All right, this is an example of the high priestess from the Ostara deck. You can see she's holding her pomegranate. One thing I like about the imagery of this one is that, can you see the veil over her eyes? Her eyes are covered, but yet still she knows the truth because she's seeing it in her mind's eye. This is the high priestess from the Light Seers deck, and if you look closely, at first glance it looks like her eyes are closed, but you can see eyes. It's almost like eyes are painted on her eyelids, but it's really her third eye seeing through, if that makes sense to you. And then on her necklace is actually made of pomegranate seeds, and she has the little moon on top of her head to represent this lunar connection to the divine. All right. This is the high priestess from the Gregory Scott deck. I like that she has the plate of incense in her hand, this offering to the gods, but also this represents the initiation. That's what I was getting to. Did I say that? The high priestess, initiates us. So we don't cross the gates without crossing her, right? We don't get through from the physical to the spiritual without first crossing the high priestess. So this incense reminds one of initiation. All right, so let's see if I missed anything. I don't think I did, so I hope you guys found that helpful. And if you did, let me know what you think in the comments, or if you have anything to add. There's so much information about the high priestess, so please add anything else that you know about the high priestess, and you all have a good one. Thanks.